I love that you said that because I actually feel that way about, I now 100% agree with you. I also feel that way about art, where I'm like, I think we're all born inherently artists. And I think
Yep.
what that means to me, I think art is like is like an attempt to like raise a self-awareness and or connect with more people. And I feel like the same way you're like, even if you're not in entertainment or comedy, like you can still enjoy and create humor. I feel that way about art.
Hello, and welcome to the What's So Funny About podcast, brought to you by the Liberation Comedy Project, liberationcomedy.org. I'm your host, Pedro Silva. On What's So Funny About, we say that we talk to funny people about serious topics. And today we're talking about two serious topics, religion and politics, in this special episode that we're calling IrReverent, Spirituality, Comedy, and the Body Politic. We also have two guests. Our first guest is Benjamin-Shalom Rodriguez. Benjamin is a queer Mexican Israeli American writer, director, and comedian. He's currently developing his half-hour animated comedy, Jesus Versus Zeus, with Sony. He's also hosted a series, Stoned Breakups. He's also an educator and filmmaker mentor with Edward James Olmos Latino Film Institute and Youth Cinema Project, where they teach students from underfunded schools how to make short films, and a charter member of the queer Latinx writers collective, the Clubhouse. Our other guest is not a stranger to the podcast. She's Reverend Barbara Ann Michaels, comic artist, entrepreneur, and founder of the House of Holy Humor. We're going to have a great conversation today. So, Benjamin and Barbara, welcome to the podcast.
Thank
Hi,
you.
so excited to be here.
It's really
Yeah,
a pleasure.
yeah, this is very exciting to me too, because we're living in a time where a lot of things that we used to be able to laugh about, people don't laugh about. And top of the mind is politics and religion. I mean, you start talking about it, and these days people just immediately jump to either side of an issue as if there's no middle ground, no cross sections or anything like that. And hopefully, in our time today, we'll be able to expand that conversation, give some people some things to laugh about, the question, and everything. But top of the mind for me, I just had to bring it up right out the box as a Christian pastor. What is up with Jesus versus Zeus? That's your animated series you're working on, right?
Yeah, well, I have a few thoughts about religion and laughter. The first is I'm like, I like if God really is this like all-powerful entity being, however you describe him in whatever religion you bounce around, I'm like, I don't think God gives an F about, do you know what I mean? Like the God that could make the universe in 7 days, I don't think cares if you call God like a butthead, you know? But I
Right.
think it's definitely, but the other thing is I feel like humans project who they are onto, doesn't matter what religion you are, you're still
Hmm.
projecting who you are onto this, like essentially what you think is a better version of you. And
Mm.
yeah, I'm not religious at all. I think religion is just used to like manipulate people to do what they want. Because at the end of the day, the way I just look through my world lens is just like there really are only two sides. It's like, do you support human rights for everyone, or are you this like it's complex, people are different? Because at the end of the day, I'm like, we're on a rock in space. As far as we know, we all are gonna die this lifetime. Doesn't mean there's no reincarnation or whatever, but I'm just like, I don't think God cares if you laugh or not at God. Like, God is God. Like, God is going to be chilling long after we go and was chilling long before we go. And for all we know, we're probably going to die and wake up and be like, oh, I'm God.
That's interesting. You know, the funniest thing is my intimacy with God came with me kind of calling God a butthead. When I was a little kid, some kids told me I was going to get struck by lightning for something I said on the school bus, and I didn't know what it was, but it made me angry that a God would strike me with lightning for some mistake I made. So I went in the closet in the dark and just started trying to say mean things to God to make God strike me with lightning. because I was like, I'm not gonna just walk around waiting for some random lightning strike to get me. So I'm just gonna force it now. And one of the things I was like, you poopy head, what? And I and then for some reason, I because I was able to unload like that and nothing happened to me, it made me feel some kind of peace. And that's kind of how my relationship started with God when I was like 6 years old.
That's so sweet. And
That
yeah,
is so hilarious. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
I can see you sitting in there. And so were you in this closet? Was there a light in there? Was it you in
No,
the
it was
dark
completely
doing your
dark,
main
and I
messy
had my
thing?
grandma's coats wrapped around me, so I didn't want my grandmother to hear me. So
Oh
I
my
went in there and
goodness.
like wrapped myself up in like coats and stuff, and I was in darkness, and like just said like all the things I could think of because I was mad at God because my dad had left and my granddad had died anyway. So I was like, "Oh, you're gonna kill my granddad, take my dad, and then strike me with lightning?" And so I like, my childhood brain, I just went in on him.
Yeah, it's like, okay, God, I got an issue with this.
Yeah.
So this is Barbara Ann Michaels. My legal title is Reverend Barbara Ann Michaels, and then I call myself Jester of the Peace. And I'm an interfaith minister, so I'm not a member of any particular religion. I've been to interfaith seminary and studied religions of the world, although I'm not a member of any of them. And I put forth art, love, and humor as the great reconnectors of the human spirit. Because if I've ever felt separate, just dislodged, depressed, I don't mean clinically, just anytime I felt separation of any sort, art, love, and humor have saved the day for me every time. And
Hmm.
so I put that forth as an artist. And so I'm a performance artist and interfaith minister. And over the years of my relationship with spirituality, I've found myself saying, and this points to something you were just saying, Ben, there's one God, but it's all of us. And I really take stock in the creators creating with a creator. And I have plenty of space for atheism. So basically, one of the things that I came to understand at Interfaith Seminary was everybody has to deal with the mystery of life. Nobody
Hmm.
gets around dealing with the mystery of life. And whether people deal with it spiritually or atheistically, we all have to deal with it. And what I came to was if whatever you believe makes you a kinder person to yourself and others, notice including the self, because we've got a lot of religious messages about denying the self that I don't agree with, but kinder to yourself and others. I don't care what it is at all. If you're kinder to yourself and others, please call it whatever you want. Spaghetti monster,
Hmm.
plants, my cat, God, Jesus versus Zeus, what have you. And so, inherently, Ben, in this show, Jesus versus Zeus, it is actually an interfaith production if you think about it that way.
Well, it's meant to be, yes.
And so I'm interested to hear about that. And then also in the US at this moment where we all are, it feels like there's so much friction. There's so much friction. Religion is being used in a frictive way. And here
So
you are uniting various faiths, including your faiths of origin in this production. And so,
my ultimate goal, I think, so like the past maybe few years, I've been on this sort of like epiphany where I'm like, I think like doesn't matter what the religion is, it feels like people keep equating God, even atheism, it's just like people keep equating God with power or like God with control. And I feel like this was the first year where I just kind of was like, wait, no, I think God is consciousness, God is self-awareness, like God is just that ability to recognize like how much power and control you have over certain things. So that led me to this thing where I'm just kind of right now, like I used to introduce myself and people would be like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a filmmaker and I'm working on blah, blah, blah." And now I'm just like, I'm a filmmaker and I'm just pretty much like, whatever I put forth, I'm just like, I hope it just raises the self-awareness and or makes people feel empowered. And that's what my intent with Jesus, JVZ as well. Because I just, yeah, I think a lot of us have it all wrong, myself included, when I was like, why isn't God helping me? Or like, how do I get enlightenment? And my boyfriend and I have just been on this kick where we're like, I think we reach it. Like, how do I put it? Like, even these like safe religions, like, and what I mean is like that don't seem to be particularly violent, like Buddhism and like I guess more Asian religions. But I'm just like, I think that's wrong too. This idea that you must suffer to get enlightenment, you must like meditate all day to get enlightenment. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I experience enlightenment like nearly daily, if definitely weekly, nearly daily, which to me is just this very intense, wonderful feeling of like everything that is right now, like I chose. Like I
Mm,
chose, I feel here, I feel that um like I think where I land metaphysically believing right now is that like God was just God and have the same existential dilemmas as we as humans. So like was just lonely and then created, started creating as a way to like entertain God's self because we're just like lonely floating beings. But yeah, that God part to me is just that consciousness of that loneliness
mm.
versus like, oh, I'm powerful.
What I like hearing about that is and especially growing up Christian, especially growing up fundamentalist, is like I found the older I got that every time I talked to somebody who didn't believe like me, it both expanded my imagination in terms of like how people view the world from different perspectives, different cultures, different things like that. But it also gave me a deeper intimacy with my own religion of choice. And I use choices like how you said you chose all this. I feel like I told myself a long time ago around that younger age, like I said, I chose to be black. I chose to be Christian. I chose to be short. I chose like, and I don't know why I told myself that, but I just started telling myself that I chose it. And then I asked myself, why would I choose it? And then whatever I learned in answering that question, I felt like was almost like God communicating to me through me. Like you chose this, figure out why you chose it, and you'll understand yourself and me better. And I actually have been writing some things about art. Right now I'm writing something called God is an Artist. And the opening line of it says that artists are proof that God exists and that God is full of grace. And the underlying thread is that most of us have been through something in our lives. We've been through some kind of challenges, some kind of struggles for different reasons. And we have choice in what we do with those struggles. Some people, they go through crap and then what they do is they put that crap back on someone else and they project it onto somebody else or they take it out on somebody else or whatever. But artists take that same stuff and they turn it into something else. They convert it into something else. And so my theme underlying is artists turn chaos into culture. And so that's the thread that I've been focusing on for the past month. I've been meditating on that and reflecting on how I've witnessed that in my life. So like now, whenever I see somebody that is making a choice to create something that didn't exist in the world, we say God created something out of nothing. I don't know if that's actually accurate, but what I see a person taking something like you have had your experiences, cultivated them, decided to be an artist, filmmaker, and create this Jesus versus Zeus. You took all of that and you created something that's being in the image of God. Is taking something and creating something and something that invites people in. And the same with everything that Barbara's doing is also the same theme. And I just feel like that's just beautiful and it's inviting and it's an opportunity that I would hope more people take to just listen and witness and to not see other people's points of view as threats.
You make it sound like I'm doing such great work, but I want to point out that literally everything I do is just because even this like trying to empower people, I'm like, I'm just doing it because legit, I just want to have more fun. Like, I'm just like, how did we freaking get a playground? I'm like the best, like as far as we know, I'm like, this is the best playground in the world, like in
In
the
the
universe.
universe, yeah.
And how do we turn it into a hellscape? Like, what the actual heck? I'm like, so like everything I do, not to say everything's a hellscape, but when you see like children being murdered and people just not flat out being like, stop, like not even screaming stop, but just like, okay, stop. Went too far. I'm like, what? To me, that's a hellscape. Because then I'm like, well, these people aren't safe. And that's really scary. But yeah, everything I do at this point, probably for the past like 2 years, is just like, how do I get people to just like chill? Not even because I want to help them, but because I want to help myself. So I'm
Hmm.
like, they need to chill so I can chill too.
You
Hey,
want to
and that's
create this environment.
enlightened selfishness.
Pardon?
Enlightened
I said,
selfishness. Yay, enlightened
yeah, and
selfishness.
Yeah, I call it
yeah.
petty enlightenment, but
Oh, that's a good title too. Petty enlightenment. That's nice.
yeah,
There's
Petty
many
like when I
ways you can
enlightenment.
like
come up with.
really dislike someone or something, I'm like, I'm gonna be so kind and nice to them so they'll have no idea and they'll just get off my back.
That's from the Bible, man.
Really? I've only read the complete illustrated children's Bible.
Oh, that's a good one to start with. Mine got stolen.
I was actually reading it as research for Jesus versus Zeus because I just like feel like I learned more about like the Torah or like those stories, but not so much the
Ben, will
Christian.
you describe the Jesus versus Zeus show a bit? So for our listeners who are meeting that project for the first time.
Yeah. So Jesus versus Zeus is a half-hour animated comedy, and it is about a like jealous, petty AF Zeus who's trying to destroy Jesus before Jesus steals enough of his followers and no one believes in him anymore. And just like that's it, you're dead. Because if no one believes in you, yeah,
That's
that's what it
awesome.
is. I mean, I think the real gag is though, because we set it up that like what do you call it? I feel like people go into it thinking like, well, obviously Jesus won, and I'm here thinking like, no, I think Zeus just evolved and integrated himself into the Jesus narrative, which is why we still have wars and all this horrible stuff. I
Mm,
don't think it's,
mm.
maybe we'll see. We're still writing it, obviously, but I think
It's pretty
that
slick. That
yeah, I
that
think
part
that's the
is
gag though. I'm like, no, Jesus has not won. But it's funny because like I grew up super Jewish and then Reformed Jew, but still like Jewish. And then like now working on this project, I just had this like, this was years ago, but had this like overwhelming feeling of like, wait, I think I do believe in Jesus. Like I think I believe that he was like probably this sort of like self-help guru that was trying to make everyone their own self-help guru. And then obviously, people in power that are trying to exploit people don't like that. Like they don't like fearlessness. Like, yeah. Anyway,
That's
I hate
cool though
that.
because because a lot of people, one of the things that frustrated me as a pastor is I like studied so much and learned so much about like Christianity as it evolved over the centuries. And what your premise is basically true, that like a lot of the Greek and Roman god overlays have overlaid on the Jesus story in a lot of different ways if you look at those pantheons and then you look at
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole thing
yeah.
with Rome was like they I mean, in my story, I use this more dramatically, but it's like Rome needed to like appease the Greeks after conquering them. So it was like, great, let's integrate religions. And that's like the premise is that Zeus already kind of has a strike against him because he had to like kind of secede some of his power to stay relevant in the new Roman Empire. Uh,
Hmm.
and I'm just like, yeah, so what's to say he's not going to then like give up more of his identity to stay relevant, but now he's cast as Jesus.
Wow. Man, that's going to be a conversation starter. You said that
I
I made it
hope
sound like you
so.
were made it sound like you were doing something great, but I think being able to have conversations about those kind of religious concepts and make it funny also is a gift because we definitely need to laugh more
Yeah.
and to be able to like look at some of the things that some of us take seriously and to be able to like it's I think it will force a conversation for some folks,
I just
that's awesome.
I don't understand how people will be so outraged about like words, but how do I put it? Like I just feel like we put our outrage and our paranoia around the wrong things. I'm like, let's just help everyone. Like, let's help humans have enough food, have enough water, not get murdered. Like, let's start with the basic, not get murdered. Let's just stop the like senseless murdering, but instead people get so mad about like using the word anti-Semitism wrong, using the word Zionism wrong. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I think that's also partly behind this, is I'm just like, why are we so caught up on the language when there's just like action items we can do that are more aligned with humanity? Am I
Okay,
making
so
sense?
this is where it starts to go in the political direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, how do you put it? I don't think art, how do I, like, I try to avoid the word should. I don't think art should be political. I think politics makes art political. And I think it's really sad because um, I God, it's not even hatred. Like when I think about like what we have done to ourselves, I just like want to cry and scream at the same time. And I think that having done this research for Jesus versus Zeus, because I like my whole premise is that like like ancient Greece was ground zero for white supremacy because you just had all these Greek men like putting human rights up to a vote when like so I just think that any government, like any type of ideology, like socialism, capitalism, democracy, like it's never gonna work if we don't establish human rights first. Like if the because then you can always vote people off that you need unless
Hmm.
there's human rights. Like even from the selfish point, or even from like the selfish capitalist point of view, I'm like, you could be richer with less drama if there were just guaranteed human rights.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The way my ears hear, like everything I hear from you, and there's this concept, I'm interrupting myself, but there's this concept called anonymous Christians, and I'm not trying to press this on you. I'm just telling you
Oh,
what I
am
hear.
I an anonymous Christian?
So the idea behind, I can't remember the theologian who came up with it, but it's Paul in the Bible also talks about people who are a law unto themselves. And what he means is there's people who follow the natural spiritual laws, but they don't know that they're doing it because they haven't studied the religion to know that they're doing it, but they're
Yeah.
doing it anyway. Just like you said, when somebody's mean to you, you put like you're be super kind to them. And there's literally a verse that says, if someone treats you unjustly, treat them kindly, and it puts coals of fire upon their head or something like that.
Oh my
And it really
God.
like burns them up and makes them think when you're kind to them when they're mean to you. So that's something you're saying you do, but you're not a practicing Christian or anything like that. But you're somehow adapted that through your own you know life or whatever you picked up. And I'm not trying to put the Christian label on people. I just think that there are fundamental ways of creating harmonious relationships, and we know it inherently, but we don't know how we know it. But like if somebody treats you wrong when you're a little kid, something tells you that's not right. You may learn to ignore it, but when you're first coming to the world, I think we have a great sense of like what's harmonious relationally, what isn't. And there's some people who live from that, and I think that's how Jesus lived. And so if you put words to it or don't put words to it, it's living inside of us. And you're trying to figure out how to live from that more fully all the time.
I had this moment. I feel like I was probably in like a pretty on and off, like bad depression from like 12 until my 30s. Because when I was like 12, I had this. So I like, it was like when you're Jewish and Reformed, and like, so in seventh grade, everyone just gets bar and bat mitzvah. So like every weekend, you're just like stacked. You're literally going out as if you were like, I don't know. It just made me feel like a celebrity because I'm like, I have a party every weekend. Like, I'm closeted. I'm just like, I'm so cool. Like, girls will love me. And so I was at probably like I don't know, it was like October. So it would have been like one of the earlier bar bat mitzvahs. And I remember I'd been like, yeah, I'm gonna like dance, and everyone's gonna like be around me. I'm gonna get like one of those stupid steampunk hats and like inflatable guitar instruments and all the Mardi Gras beads. I remember like, wow, it all happened. I like manifested it. I was like, wow, I
Mm.
got everything I want. And then I went to the restroom to just like take a quick, like literally break, go pee and wash my hands. And then when I was like washing my hands, it was like the first time ever that I feel like I really saw myself is like human, but knowing like there's just can't be it. And so I just like look at myself in this stupid hat, like all these like stupid plastic adornments. And I just saw like the reflection. I was looking in the mirror and I saw my eye and saw like a reflection of me in my eye, and it just went on for infinity. And I just started like panic attacking. And I feel like I didn't really come out of that depression until like my 30s, when I just sort of like, I mean, I read a bunch. Like I read like Conversations with God, the trilogy. I read like Abraham Hicks, and then just some more stuff, like the Another Earth, Eckhart Tolle. And I feel like it wasn't till then that I finally, it's not like I denied what happened, but it's like I finally accepted that, like, yeah, there's just more. There is more than what my fellow humans, there's more than what my fellow humans are telling me, and there's more than what seems like acceptable to talk about. And I feel like that's the issue with like all of it, comedy, religion, and politics, is that like we are so stuck in this life. And it's just like, I think that refusal to open our mind that other things could be possible. I'm not saying agree with me. I'm saying let's respectfully disagree at the very least.
Right.
And I feel like that's what would make like politics better. I think that would make comedy funnier. I think that would make art better, is if we just stopped being only rooted in this lifetime.
I appreciate that a lot. I think about the cultural habit that we're in of using being offended to stop a conversation. I'm offended, I'll stop. Versus I'm offended and we're going to talk about it, because on no day is I'll stop all the time going to create a better society. And
well, Barbara, you bring up such a good point. It's like, who cares if you're offended? Like, let's keep talking, right?
Right.
Well, this is the thing. And so, the one of the results of I'm offended, conversation over, or I'm offended, I'm blocking you, you're out of my life, is that we've got pods where only the people who believe this are in this circle, and only the people who believe this are in this circle. And that's not the way the world is, and it's not the way society is designed. It's not the way democracy works, but it's not the way anything works, really. I mean, not in a healthy world. And so if I've got this idea that there is a healthy world, that the dial can be moved on in my lifetime, one of those things is to help people connect and reconnect. And I have found that humor does that faster, because it helps people see things that are hard to see, have conversations that are hard to have, get some distance. You put a little space around the pain, and then humor can make the bridge. And I feel it's one of the most underappreciated powers in the human condition, because I have people tell me, and we have comedians on this call. We got 2 comedians and a clown. Yay. I'm not funny. I'm not a comedian. And if I'm hearing I'm not funny, I'm not a comedian, what I hear when someone says that to me is I have put a barrier between me and my wellness, because humor is in the human condition. It's not in the domain of, I mean, it's also in the domain of comedy and the entertainment industry. And so I like to say, I want to put humor back in the medicine cabinet for generations starting now.
Yeah.
I love that you said that, because I actually feel that way about, I now 100% agree with you. I also feel that way about art, where I'm like, I think we're all born inherently artists. And I think what that means to me, I think art is like an attempt to like raise a self-awareness and or connect with more people. And I feel like the same way you're like, even if you're not in entertainment or comedy, like you can still enjoy and create humor. I feel that way about art. I feel like, honestly, I feel like sometimes Hollywood is like the tackiest, dumbest industry I've ever been a part of. And I think that because it thrives off of this exclusivity, that I'm like, but why? It like literally, it would be, how do I put it? It's like it's an artistic industry, but yet you clock into an office, work like 9 to 7, and you have to wear certain things, and like there's like award season and red carpets. It's like, this isn't art, this is ego. And I feel like we need to kind of start separating that where it's just like, hey, Hollywood is known for art and ego. If you want to do that, great. And also you're an artist. So like let's start practicing whatever art it is, whether it's gardening, whether it's just cleaning your home and arranging it, whether it's like the art of conversation. Like I just feel like put comedy back and put art back into everyone's like mind.
Yeah. I think that's what you're describing, I think, is things being formulaic. And that's something that I think has trapped us in all kinds of areas of like politics, religion, art, or poetry. Another expression of art is that somebody does something well, and then someone else goes, I want to do that thing that that person did. And so they create a formula to duplicate it instead of allowing things to like spontaneously take shape based on all of the life ingredients that someone has inside of them, and they just keep trying to repeat the formula. So then like you might write a poem and it could be, you poured out your essence into it. I'm speaking specifically of myself because I'll write a good amount of poetry, and then somebody be like, that's not iambic pentameter, and then it's like, what? It's like, who gives a crap? You know what I mean? Like iambic pentameter didn't exist until somebody wrote a poem in that style, and somebody said that's iambic pentameter, and now or whatever the words they want to use, and all sorts of other manifestations of being creative. So like for a long time, a lot of politicians, pastors, especially black pastors, they all started sounding like Martin Luther King because he did it successfully. He's like, I have a dream. The next thing you know, everybody's like, oh, I want some cupcakes. Oh, everything is like sound just like Martin Luther King Jr. And it's like, why you gotta sound like him, man? Just sound like you. If your voice sounds like squeaky hair Jordan, that's who you are. Just be like, hello, everybody love Jesus. Like just sound like that. Like don't try to imitate somebody and create a formula because it wasn't birthed out of a formula. And so I think there's some things, yeah, you wanted to have a formula for, but not everything. And we do that in human relational enterprises. We create formulas where I don't think it's designed for that. There's things where you want a formula. You want to open a can of Coke and it tastes like one day it tastes like spinach, next day it tastes like Coke. But with other things, I think with engaging things, we should drop the formulas.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do it because we're trying to make sense out of how do you like it's the more how do you put it? Like I feel like our world is the way it is specifically because we do not reflect enough on like spirituality, politics, art. Like that's why we're here because we keep creating more and more chaos, more and more drama to avoid the fact that, like you said, there's one of you said like the mystery of life. Like you cannot escape it. Like even if you choose
Mm-hmm.
to deal with it through like denial and like, going full core hardcore in this life, I'm like, that's still how you chose. Like your life is how you choose to deal with the mystery of life. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we have not acknowledged that, accepted that, or used it to its advantage. And that's why we're like in this situation where we can just kill one another still and kind of like go on with our day.
Okay, so how can humor make a difference?
Girl, you tell me.
I
You
think
tell me.
laughing
No,
at
you tell me.
ourselves.
No, you tell me. No, we tell each other.
I think laughing at ourselves is like the where it starts. Like I think if you give permission, because a lot of comedy, people build culture around who they're against sometimes. Like there's this guy named Rene Girard who talks about cultures being built around a founding murder. So whoever they killed, they're like, that's the bad person. We kill that person and we build our culture around, whoever that is. But I think that has maybe been the way we've done things historically, but it doesn't have to be the way we do it going forward. Because even when comedians say do a good job at comedy, they say I killed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They use murderous language to talk about
Oh
success. They're like,
my
I
God.
killed, I slayed, I destroyed it. Like all this like kind of language to talk about having a good time.
Instead of I connected, I
Right.
elevated.
Yeah. And we do that.
Transcended. I
Yeah.
transcended.
Yeah. I enlightened them tonight. But I think that happens because it's so much of our culture is built around that context of the founding murder or who are we against. or whatever the case may be. And then a lot of comedy for a long time was laughing at people who were outside of your group in some kind of way. But I think one way that comedy seemed to be evolving is a lot more people are telling stories and also laughing at themselves and the complexities of who they are. Like I joke a lot about being black, but my name's Pedro Silva, and people looking at me and saying like, "What are you, some kind of Mexican?" Like that's when I grew up, they used to say that, and I joke about it. And but when I was a kid, it hurt. But when I'm an adult now, I like joke about people saying like they used to tell me go back to Mexico and all this other stuff like that. And because I lived in Virginia and Mississippi, it wasn't a lot of people with my name, so they didn't know what to do with it, you know. And my dad was an immigrant, had an accent, so they just didn't know anything. So I joke it now, and I laugh. It liberates it, but then people can look and say, well, what something happened in my life that I could laugh at, you know? That's my thought, laughing at ourselves first.
Barbara?
Yes. My so part of this conversation was inspired by the bridging movement, which is designed to connect people on the left and people on the right so that we don't have silos of belief and shut doors and closed ears. It's almost like two sides have on earmuffs, sunglasses, a hat, three parkas, and standing behind three walls and, you know, got the door closed and threw away the key. And we can't really go on as a society with that in place. And the bridging movement also is even though the mission of it and the impact of it is so vast because of the siloing of conversations, how to bring attention and where can the little bridging movement and the seed grow into a plant and bloom and everyone can smell the aroma and go, oh, we can all breathe again.
It's interesting because I don't, how do I put it? Like, I there's like two things. My boyfriend Benji and I were literally writing like kind of, we call it American fan fiction, where we like write our fan fiction of what we wish would happen with the government. And one of them was that like Biden gets stripped of all his power and he can never run for office again. And and he has to make minimum wage for the rest of his life and all this. But we would do this where like we would take away all his basic necessities and we would put him. Have you guys seen the J-Lo documentary? Or the
I
J-Lo
did.
movie?
I did.
Okay, you know that song Rebound in the Glass House?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we put Biden stripped of everything, like no clothes, into one room. And then in the next room is a toilet. But he can only access that toilet once he agrees to never run for office again. And then once he's in that toilet, he can only get the toilet paper in the next room once he agrees to only make minimum wage again. And then in like the next room is a shower, and he can only get that once he agrees that like all humans have these unalienable equal rights. And so I don't agree. I respectfully disagree with like there are these like two sides that need to come together. I think there's one side that is like we support everyone's fundamental human rights, and there's one side that won't. And like, because I think about it like I am here to have conversations with my mom, my dad, my sister, who are incredibly extreme Zionists, like justifying children murders, telling me like Palestinians hate gays. I'm like, okay, great. That's separate than wanting them to be bombed. And I'm just like, I will have conversations with you, but only if we can agree that everyone has a shared humanity. And they will not agree to that. And so I don't think it's as simple as like these two sides need to come together. I think there are situations, and there are situations within this like Israeli, the genocide right now that I think really can use that, but ultimately, I do think there's one side that is pro-humanity, and there's one side that isn't. And this is just my personal experience. I think it is completely fair to, before engaging in that energy of trying to converse with someone, to just say, do we at least agree in shared humanity? And
Right.
what is crazy is that a lot of these other people don't. My mom, my dad, my sister do not agree in that. And I don't think, I don't think anyone is obligated, nor should they feel they have to do that labor of trying to like bridge with people like that. Because I
Right.
do think people like that should be siloed and then always have the option to like creep closer into society as they accept that like we all have a shared humanity that in a really fun, cool world is the priority above anything else.
That's what it
I
brings me
agree
to
with
is
you.
that question of using humor. How can humor point to shared humanity? That's the answer to the question.
Maybe we'll
Pedro,
do that American fan fiction as a comic and hopefully someday.
Sometimes I imagine that at the end of whatever this life is, that I'm gonna show up and then God, however God shows up, is gonna be cracking up laughing. And then God's gonna be like, "Yeah, man, you fell for that joke." And like the joke was my whole life. Like this,
Yeah.
like then it was like my whole life was a practical joke. And then God's like, "Oh, remember you thought you could die? Woo! Remember when y'all thought?" And God's just cracking up laughing, like, "I can't believe you fools." And it's a way for me to expand my own inner space for possibility. So like I don't know. And I'm totally cool with the mystery. Most of my life, I don't know what's going on, but I think that what the challenge is that people like our primary instinct is to survive, and so because we have that primary, when you're focused only on your own body autonomy and your body survival, even though no one's body is going to survive. Like, so it's almost crazy that we build all of our lives around surviving since it's not going to happen, but we do. And because of that, we look at things in terms of threats and we're like, what will minimize my chance of surviving? And then we put all of those things in categories. It doesn't matter if it's people or this or that. It's like I think that most people are just trying to answer that question, like, how do I minimize threat? And your position, the way I hear you and the way I experience myself and the way I experience Barbara, is that that's not the whole story. That there's something bigger that's like, how can you enjoy the life that you have? Like the try to survive this is goofy because you're not going to. So how can you enjoy the time that you do have here? And I think if more people were able to connect with that, they would spend less of their time trying to assess threats and spend more of their time trying to figure out like gifts and opportunities and creating and all these other things like that. And I think that's when we look at I don't even believe in sides per se, but to use that because that's the way we speak in the world. I would say there's people who are trying to figure out how do I make the most of the life I have, and other people are trying to be like, how do I protect this life I have, no matter what. And if we could, I don't know, I really don't know, but I think one of the powers of the Jesus narrative is that death isn't the end, and it's like a way of getting around that idea that, oh, I'm gonna die, and then so I now have to do all these crazy things because it says in the Bible like that all sin, which the word sin just means missing the mark. So all the ways that we miss the mark are because of the fear of death. So it's like fear of death that is driving so many of us, and it's in the Bible. It's putting eternal life versus uh temporary, like this idea of death. And so it's like if we can believe, whether we believe in eternal life or whether we believe that I got to make the best of this life, it's either way, it's better than just trying not to die, because the hero dies in that narrative, which is also something that we don't like. We always want the hero to survive, but
You had
anyway.
said something though about like, oh, your life, you'll die, and then God's like, oh, what a joke. Like life was a joke.
Right.
I sometimes feel that, but in a different way. Like I feel like the way we make art, like whether it's movies, TVs, or a painting, is like we are creating we either consume or make art. So the way we create art or consume it is there's a narrative that is ideally enhancing our experience. And I
Mm.
feel like God did that with life. Like life is the art God created to enhance God's experience. And so I do think it is completely possible that like the three of us die when we die, but then when we wake up, we realize like, oh, it was just me. I was one sole creator. I made Pedro, I made Barbara, I made Ben. Like they were just characters in this thing I
Hmm.
made to distract myself, enhance my experience, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like at first I was like, oh, that sounds a little woo-woo. But then I'm like, but it's not. Like we literally as humans, we keep creating things. Like we create
Hmm.
vibes, we create experiences. And it is literally, we do it all to enhance our experience in life. So what
Hmm.
is to say that God is not doing that with us to
Right.
enhance
Right.
God's experience?
Yeah. I know some people who feel that way who are very religious too, and they to some degree they think that. But so I think that's a very viable thing and is way healthier than some other ways people
Yeah, well, I'm
engage
just
life.
like, just believe whatever is going to give you peace, a
Enjoy.
peace. But again, like that makes you either kinder or at least not meaner.
Yeah.
Believe whatever's going to keep you curious. Believe whatever is going to keep
Yeah,
you
Mm.
connecting. Believe whatever is going to keep you discovering, or whatever is going to keep you in a sense of possibility, or whatever's going to keep you. Well, I'm a creator, so I'm obviously going to say creating and being creative.
well, I feel like gosh, when I hear you speak, you sound so like cool and hopeful. And I'm like, my bare minimum is like, just believe whatever's going to keep you out of my way. Like I just want to live my life, enjoy, picnic, laugh in the park with friends, like whatever's going to keep you out of that. If you're going to be like a wet blanket, just believe that. Like,
Well, we're closer than it sounds because I my highest value is find your gift, give your gift, and be appreciated for your gift in your lifetime. Otherwise, people get missed. And then, why in the world did we create a society where people aren't spending all of their time finding out what their gifts to humanity are and giving them? What else is better than that? I can't imagine. But at the core of that is my deep belief that life is a celebration. Life is meant to be a
yes.
celebration all day, every day. What
But
else would we
why?
be doing other than celebrating life? And that is not a naive woo-woo statement to pick that up, right? It's life is a miracle, and the best thing I can do is
Enjoy it.
create. Yeah, it's to enjoy, to create situations where I can celebrate that with others and remind people when they forget.
Can you
Yeah.
answer your question that you posited? The one where you were like, why would people, oh, I forgot, but I was like, I want to know what you think. You said
Why?
like,
Why? What do I think about? Why would people create a world?
yeah, why would they
Um,
create this world then?
Power drunk.
Possibly.
Power.
As
I
we
mean,
get
what else? What else? What else would there be? Scarcity. So some little seed of scarcity crawled up in there, and then someone ate it. And then suddenly we had scarcity. I mean, that's not that far away from the Adam and Eve story, right? Oh, I'm going to eat some
yeah.
scarcity. And then now we have an issue forever because somebody ate. There was no scarcity before that. People were just
Okay.
celebrating life and eating. Like, what were they doing? They were having a great time. And then someone ate some scarcity. And then, uh-oh.
Wow, love
Yeah.
that interpretation.
Yeah. As we wind down, I wanted to throw out this thing too. Like the word celebrate is the root of that word is heaven. It's like the
It is.
cielo for heaven in Spanish is the same for celebrate, is the same for celestial, like all of that. So when we celebrate, we're actually practicing heaven, or the concept of heaven
Love
now.
that.
So it's like and I think that that's what we're doing. This conversation is a celebration of like possibilities. And if you really think about it, if you just like kind of expand out from where we are, like we're talking over this technology from three different places in the country. We're people who have come from like different backgrounds, like Benjamin's Israeli and Mexican. I'm like Portuguese, I'm black. Barbara, I don't know your ethnic background.
Pepper is Italian and Eastern European.
Yeah, and like we all our DNA families like crossed these borders and boundaries that people act like they can't be crossed in order for us to exist. And then we're having this conversation now, in this space, and it's like that. This is possibility. This is celebration. This is heavenly, and we're doing it. So we just have to invite more people into it. Just keep inviting people.
Can we do it fast though? Because I really want a good life. Like, let's. I don't want to be
Maybe
scared anymore. Invite more
maybe in the
people,
culture,
Pedro.
Yeah.
in
Well,
the
let's
culture
just
that we're in, we could be like, everybody's a VIP. And then,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
everyone will want
yeah.
to come.
Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it. I have to write some people today who are really up in arms about some stuff. And I want to tell them, let's stop fighting this system that doesn't even want us to be there sometimes. And let's just create this like great party of people who enjoy themselves. And then other people will just be like, hey, what are they doing over there? Loving each other no matter what and respecting each other's differences instead of trying to fight this other thing that's been rolling. Let's just try to like do our work to celebrate, to love, to enjoy ourselves, to create and use all of that to make something more inviting. You know, that's kind of what I feel like we're doing today, and I want to keep doing that. So I appreciate both of y'all being up here and we have each other's information. Let's look forward to creating something else.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm looking forward to your Jesus versus Zeus coming out and starting some conversations
Hey, it
around it.
might be a few years, but even if everything's on track, still might be a few years. But yes, I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank y'all for being here. And
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Barbara. This was so fun.
yeah, it's a joy. It's a joy to talk about. It's a joy to talk about real things in a playful way.
absolutely, that's a good place to end. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe. The What's So Funny About podcast was brought to you by the Liberation Comedy Project, which is being incubated by Mediators Foundation, mediatorsfoundation.org, and managed by Unify, YOUNIFY.org. Stay tuned for future episodes and check out past episodes as we work to bring more light, laughter, and love to this world through the Liberation Comedy Project. Bye for now.